Rebirth 03, I am the spokesperson for China Smart Manufacturing Introduction. 2003, the era of takeoff, the best decade of beginning. What can Tan Jincheng, returning to the golden age, bring to this world? Make up for past regrets. Essential. I want to make a profit from foreign trade and intelligent manufacturing. Chapter 1. Hometown Fear, new book uploaded, welcome to collect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yicheng City, Linghu Park. In early autumn, with a gentle breeze, the weather is no longer as hot, and the sun shines through the leaves and falls on the ground. The lotus in the lake has already passed its flowering period, and some have begun to wither, giving it a rather bleak appearance. Not far away from the long pavilion, two gentlemen dressed in white shirts and black pants were playing chess comfortably, with their brows furrowed as they stared at the chessboard. The other leisurely picked up the glass teacup at hand and looked at his opponent with a smile on his face. At the other end of the chongting, several women in the shape of aunties are playing. Unexpectedly, the top scorer in the yellow list was to save Li Yan from his home. The top scorer is dressed in a red robe, with a hat adorned with palace flowers. It's so fresh. Tan Jincheng has been sitting here for a while, listening to several Huangmei operas. Not to mention, the catchy Huangmei minor, pure local accent. I have calmed down a lot in my heart. Today is September 27, 2004, the 14th day of the 8th lunar month. Tomorrow is Mid-Autumn Festival. Tan Jincheng, who has been away from his hometown for 14 months, is hesitant to walk into his home and face his parents. The so-called homesickness, especially so 14 months, but for Tan Jincheng, the reborn, it's far more than that. Tan Jincheng has not set foot on this land since 2019 when his family changed and special events repeated. It has been more than 6 years since he returned to his hometown. A year ago, due to a hangover, Tan Jincheng was unexpectedly reborn from 2023 to 2003. Similar to the movie, Back to 18, Tan Jincheng went from being a 38-year-old middle-aged man back to his teenage years. What kind of experience was it to go back 20 years ago? In the present, it is difficult for Tan Jincheng to answer this question. Although it is difficult to understand, however, once it comes, let it be. The time of rebirth has not changed the life trajectory of Tan Jincheng when he was 18 years old. Naturally, as always, he joined his close friend Zhang Xupeng and boarded the luxurious cruise ship that docked at a mainland port for the first time, becoming an ocean-going crew member. P.S. The first ocean-going luxury cruise ship seems to have docked on the mainland for the first time in 2005. Here, some modifications are made for the plot. It is said to be an ocean-going crew member, but in fact, it is a waiter on a cruise ship. Because crew members need certification, the two of them do not have certification when they board the ship. It is understandable that young people yearn for a free space and want to see different landscapes. But do you know that ocean-going sailors can almost be considered one of the hardest jobs in the world? However, everything has two sides, there are gains and losses. 14 months of unique work experience not only brought some changes to Tan Jincheng's personality, but also brought him his first bucket of gold in life. 80,000 renminbi. With this bucket of gold, Tan Jincheng landed and started a small business with his close friends who boarded the ship together. He gradually grew stronger and bigger, until the two parted ways in a friendly manner. In 2019, Tan Jincheng, who fully owned his own career, encountered the most important upheaval in his life. Divorce. After his divorce, Tan Jincheng naturally lost most of his wealth and his career came to a sudden halt. After dividing his property with his ex-wife, Tan Jincheng only had one house, one car, and 3 million yuan in savings left. If you honestly hold this 3 million deposit in the bank to earn interest, do some small business or find a job, although it lacks financial freedom, maintaining daily expenses is always easy. But he never dies, and Tan Jincheng has become obsessed with stock trading. People who have speculated in stocks should know what the A-share market looks like. By the time Zhonghua Pingan, bought for 80 yuan, was reborn. Its stock price had dropped to just over 50 yuan. After entering the market, I learned how to do tea, but the result was that I initially only used 1 million yuan, but by the time I was reborn, I had already used 2 million yuan. In 2023, Tan Jincheng's 2 million yuan has now turned into 1.3 million yuan, and the stock is constantly falling. Chives have the same mentality, playing the role of an ostrich. As long as I don't cut it, it's not a loss. However, life is no longer as prosperous as before, but there is no problem maintaining it. After 4 years of decadence, Tan Jincheng, coupled with changes in the economic environment, began a life of lying flat. However, things went against expectations. Is God sending him back 20 years ago to make up for the regrets of his past life? Although the experience of leaks in the past few years is not impressive, no matter what, I have indeed learned a lot of knowledge points in the stock market. Most chives are like this, except for not earning money, they can be said to know astronomy above and geography below. These knowledge points are very useful for the reborn. In the dark, it seemed as if everything had been arranged. In the year of rebirth as an ocean-going crew member, Tan Jincheng naturally worked much harder than in his previous life, for no other reason, just to have as much gold as possible in the first bucket. When Tan Jincheng boarded the ship in his previous life, he received the minimum salary above the cruise ship, which was $600 per month. Based on the exchange rate at this time, it was about 5,000 yuan. In 2003, it could be considered a relatively high salary income, but who would think that money is too much? After rebirth, Tan Jincheng adjusted his mind and began his inner life. When he got off the boat, he had 120,000 yuan on his body, in addition to some gifts bought for himself and his parents. This 120,000 yuan is the starting capital for Tan Jincheng's life at xiaoyuan.com. I believe this time, I will do better than in my previous life. From 2003 to 2023, there were several opportunities for ordinary people to change their destiny. Just as the country has just joined the WTO, it is experiencing tremendous development, and all industries are starting to align with the world, with demand also starting to skyrocket. New industries emerge one after another. Coal bosses and the internet all started to make their fortunes at this time, and some internet giants in the future started from joining the WTO. There has been a saying that an ordinary person born with an ordinary background will have 3 opportunities to change their destiny in their lifetime. Choosing a career after graduating from college, pursuing further education between the ages of 30 and 35, and starting a business. The most important entrepreneurship, for most ordinary people, comes from an average family background, without primitive accumulation or rich social experience, making it difficult to complete in the first 2 stages. And all of these are inseparable from the overall trend of economic development. The soul comes from Tan Jincheng in later generations, and naturally knows that there are some groups in society with exceptional talents, but ultimately, they are mostly ordinary people. To change one's destiny is nothing more than seizing opportunities in the midst of changes in the social and economic environment. But now, let's go home first. Just now my phone rang. It was a text message from Zhang Xupeng. He has already arrived home, and I believe his parents have also received the news of his arrival by now. This meal of 7 wolves seems to be impossible to escape. In a few more months, my younger sister should be born soon, right? Tan Jincheng slowly stood up, pulled up the suitcase at his feet, and thought to himself, perhaps being reborn on a cruise ship is also to not change this little life, right? Chapter 2. The Age of Gold Everywhere. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Over a year of living as an ocean-going sailor, although on a cruise ship that resembles a 5-star hotel on the sea, the intensity of work is also not low. After more than a year of high-intensity work, Tan Jincheng looks much sturdier than his usual 19-year-old peers. The sun is scorching on the sea, and even without outdoor work, his skin is much darker than his usual peers. With a sturdy body, dark skin and a suitcase, it's mid-autumn festival and looks like a migrant worker carrying bricks back from the construction site for the holiday. Not long after leaving the park, taxi drivers occasionally come up to ask where Tan Jincheng is going and whether he wants to take a ride. This situation had already happened once before when the bus station left, and the taxi drivers in Yicheng were so wild, and the same overcharging was also very serious. The behavior of Yicheng taxi drivers slaughtering passengers still exists even at the beginning of 2019. The urban area is better, but if you go to the county or town below, it is common for drivers to stop halfway and ask you to pay more. Tan Jincheng's home is a distance from Linghu Park. If it were in his past life, he might have walked back slowly. However, Tan Jincheng is naturally unwilling now. The driver who approached said the place name of their own community. Sure enough, as soon as the name of the community came out, coupled with Tan Jincheng's urban accent, the driver dispersed in unison. Only one driver happened to be on the way, so he was willing to take Tan Jincheng on a journey, and he looked unlucky. Do you want to go for 20 yuan without making a watch? Okay, let's go, Tan Jincheng shrugged and said nonchalantly. It's about a 3-kilometer journey, and the starting price for taxis in Yicheng is 3 yuan per 2 kilometers. If you use a meter, it's not even 10 yuan, and you can start at 20 yuan. However, most taxi drivers in cities are like this now, and Tan Jincheng doesn't really care. 20 is 20, and it's not a difference between these two amounts of money. In my past life, doing business and traveling to major cities, Tan Jincheng often took taxis. It's not very interesting to argue with them, but if you can accept it, just hold your nose and acknowledge it. After Didi came out, the service attitude of the taxi improved a bit. Where did the young man come back from work, dragging such a big suitcase? Student, go home for the Mid-Autumn Festival and also bring your summer clothes home. Oh, I see you're so sturdy, such a big box. I thought you made a fortune somewhere and came back. You can take a taxi for 20 yuan. For military training, uncle, why don't you consider me a student? It's cheaper, how about 10 yuan? That's not enough. Just say as much as you want, and college students need to be more trustworthy. Tan Jincheng chuckled and didn't answer his words. The driver also wisely shut up. It's not a matter of blackening one's hometown. In fact, most cities are like this these days. After the reform and opening up, the material conditions have improved, but the quality of most people has not yet kept up. Even in developed coastal cities, this phenomenon exists. The driver clearly saw that he had just agreed too readily, and if he wanted to set himself up, he wanted to see if he could do more good. I was still careless. If I had known, I would have negotiated with him. Maybe he would have brought 8 yuan with him. Anyway, he was also on the way and avoided his clichés. I used to be on board the ship for over a year, in a relatively closed environment, and Tan Jincheng didn't feel much. Now that I've been ashore, I've had more contact with people, and it's been a bit uncomfortable for a while. The taxi is driving very fast, and the advantage of not using a watch is that the driver won't take a detour and will arrive at the entrance of the community in no time. At this moment, Tan Jincheng's phone also rang at the right time. Nokia's exclusive ringtone pulled Tan Jincheng's thoughts back to reality. At first glance, it was the landline number at home. Sure enough, Zhang Xupen, with his big mouth, had already told his family his number. This phone was purchased after it was launched. Last year, the newly released Nokia 3100 cost over 1,800 yuan, which is considered quite expensive nowadays. In 2004, the housing prices in the urban area of Yicheng seemed to be just over 1,000 yuan, right? A mobile phone can withstand a house of over 1 square meter. The driver looked at Tan Jincheng in confusion and muttered, then stepped on the gas and left. Tan Jincheng didn't take it seriously and pressed the answer button, regressing from the era of smartphones to the era of feature phones. It was really a bit uncomfortable. Hello, Tan Jincheng responded softly. Punya has already arrived home, and how come you haven't come back yet? The voice of a middle-aged woman came from the other end of the phone, which was Tan Jincheng's mother. I'm downstairs in the community and I'll be home soon. What phone call are you taking downstairs? It's a waste of phone bills. Hang up first. Before Tan Jincheng could speak, he hung up the phone from the other side. It was then that Tan Jincheng remembered that there were still roaming charges for phone calls these days. His phone number was obtained when he landed at the port of Yicheng, and it belonged to Zhejiang province. Global Pass, the minimum monthly fee is 88 yuan. If it is less than 88 yuan, a fee of 88 yuan will be charged. After leaving the province, a roaming fee will be charged for answering and making calls, which seems to be 60 cents per minute. At the time of applying for the card, it seemed that the business hall had mentioned it, but Tan Jincheng didn't remember it too clearly. This was due to the inertia of his past life, and he couldn't blame him. Looking at the Nokia in his hand, Tan Jincheng pondered for a moment when smartphones became popular. The business of universal charging should still have some market, right? Speaking of which, nowadays there is a lot of gold everywhere. In an era where demand is infinitely increasing, people like Tan Jincheng with memories of their past lives, if they just want to make money, it's really easy. Even if it's just opening a mobile phone accessory store, selling universal chargers, batteries, and so on, it earns a lot of money. In the era of smartphones, there are also small businesses such as phone cases and films that can be done well for many years. Don't underestimate these small businesses. If you have figured out the way and entered the industry early, the profits will be very large. It goes without saying that there are also opportunities for ordinary people to enter such industries as real estate, the internet, and automobiles. It is no problem to earn a little money, not to mention become a huge rich. Even worse, can we still buy stocks? Although I was a leak in my past life and never speculated in stocks in 2004, I still remember a few stocks, such as Maotai Liquor Industry. The current price per share of Maotai Liquor Industry is unclear, and it is even unknown whether it was listed on the stock exchange. However, the stock, which was nearly 2,000 yuan when it was reborn in a previous life, can now be said to have been bought with closed eyes. It's really a vibrant era. Tan Jincheng loved this era so much that he was so grateful to God for sending him back. Tan Jincheng walked briskly towards his own direction. This was a community built by a state-owned enterprise, with each building having 6 floors and no elevators. Tan Jincheng's home is on the 3rd floor, and with a much stronger physique, he effortlessly brought his suitcase to his doorstep. The door was ajar, and Tan Jincheng pushed it in while shouting inside, "Mom, I'm back." Chapter 3. Homecoming Travelers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hey, Dad, don't hit, I was wrong. Tan Jincheng, who pushed the door open and entered, was greeted not by his mother's concerned gaze, but by his father's 7 wolves. In my past life, I also got beaten when I returned home, but it was only at night. I just didn't expect my father to go home in the afternoon. This is another variable, no wonder the door is open and there is indeed fraud. Do you still know that when you come back and take a break, you run out with that kid from Lao Zhang's house and haven't contacted your family for several months? I thought you died outside. I didn't want to either. When I left, I didn't know that the mobile phone wouldn't work if it left the province, and it was difficult to contact at sea. Damn it, who let you board the ship? Don't you know that school starts in September? I was wrong, I was really wrong, I dare not do it anymore. Dad, please don't hit me, the belt will break soon. At this moment, Zhang Suji walked out of the kitchen and said to her husband, "All right, stop it. Just give it a lesson, don't really hurt yourself." Mother, how defeated. Tan Lihua scolded angrily, but she also stopped and sat back on the sofa with an angry expression on her face. Tan Jincheng carefully glanced at his father and slowly leaned towards his mother's direction. My parents these days are different from those in later generations. They really need to take action. Just a few belts down, my legs hurt. Seeing that his father had no intention of getting angry again, Tan Jincheng looked at his mother and pretended to be puzzled, asking, "Mom, why is your stomach so big?" You have younger siblings. As a reborn individual, Tan Jincheng already knew about this result, but he cannot express it. Not only do I know that my mother is pregnant, but I also know that in a few months, I will have a little sister. After going out on his own in his previous life, he used public phones to report safety to his family in the early stages, but lost contact after boarding the ship. For this, my parents were really anxious and even called the police. As dual employees of state-owned enterprises, Tan Lihua and Zhang Suji only gave birth to Tan Jincheng in that special era. The only child in middle age suddenly disappeared, isn't it urgent? But at that time, Tan Jincheng was already hanging on the open sea alone. It was not so easy to get in touch, and besides, the efficiency of handling affairs these days, especially in small cities, can be imagined. After a long relationship, the couple only found out a few months later that their unpopular son had gone to work at sea. This made both of them extremely angry, and the more they thought about it, the more they felt angry, so the couple discussed and, taking advantage of the relaxation of policies and the fact that they were not yet that old, tried to see if they could have another one. Tan Jincheng has a relative who gave birth to another child in his early 40s, perhaps parents were also inspired by this, which led to the idea of having a second child. Tan Jincheng's mother, Zhang Suji, happens to be 40 years old this year. After getting pregnant, she worked very hard and didn't go to work again after 3 months. She rested at home. Speaking of which, Tan Jincheng's reckless boarding has truly changed the fate of the family. You ran onto the ship silently, and your mother and I didn't know when you would be back. We decided to have another son instead of you. Seeing that Zhang Suji was silent, Tan Lihua answered in a muffled voice. Speaking of which, it's actually a bit embarrassing. My son is almost 20 years old and hasn't come home for over a year, so I added a younger brother or sister to him. As parents, facing this situation can be somewhat awkward. Good thing, have you checked? Is it a younger brother or a younger sister? Tan Jincheng, with a middle-aged man's soul hidden beneath his young face, could naturally see the embarrassment of his parents. Not yet, but the due date is less than 2 months, Zhang Suji said with some embarrassment. I think she must be a younger sister, so our family can come up with a good word. Then Tan Jincheng said again, Mom, you need to rest well recently. You must be careful. If there is any heavy work at home, let me do it. After more than a year, I didn't run away in vain. I still know how to care about people. Alright, let's not talk about this anymore, go pack up and prepare for dinner. Okay, I'll go take a shower. It's been a long time since I ate the dishes my mom made. Seeing her parents' embarrassed expression, Tan Jincheng couldn't continue this topic. If we keep talking, maybe the 7 wolves will be summoned again. Oh, by the way, these days 7 wolves are still considered high-end goods, and my father should not be willing to buy them. Seeing their own young man walking away, the couple exchanged a glance and breathed a sigh of relief. Tan Lihua stood up and said to Zhang Suji, you go sit down for a while, I'll go pick up the vegetables. By the time Tan Jincheng came out of the bathroom, there were 4 dishes and 1 soup on the table. Meatball and vegetable soup, meatball and potato flour dumplings, braised crucian carp in brown sauce, braised chicken with chestnuts, and fried shredded meat with edamame. Full of Yicheng's unique features, it is said that the highest treatment for guests by Yicheng people is meat roasted yam flour balls. I didn't expect to have this for my first meal at home. It's not easy to cook 2 dishes. Pork braised yam flour balls and chestnuts braised chicken. It takes a lot of time to find the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com, especially when it comes to meat roasted yam flour balls. It is important to have a particularly good control over the heat. The time is too short to be fully cooked and cannot be eaten. After a long time, it will be burnt to the bottom. As a native of Yicheng, even if he doesn't have work experience as a chef behind a cruise ship, Tan Jincheng can tell at a glance that this meat braised potato flour round cake has a perfect heat. My mother is heavy and making this dish is very difficult, and I believe my father has also helped a lot. That's probably why he appeared at home at this time. My parents' love for me has always been there. The seemingly simple 4 dishes are welcomed back by parents with their greatest love. Tan Jincheng stared at the table of dishes and remained silent for a while. Just as Zhang Suji realized something was wrong and wanted to speak, Tan Jincheng spoke out first. Putting away his playful smile when he first arrived home, Tan Jincheng solemnly said to his parents, "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry, my son has made you worried. This apology is not only for being stubborn this time in this life, but also for the guilt of neglecting parents and family due to being busy with business in the later stages of the past life." Tan Jincheng's sudden apology left the Tan Lihua couple unsure of how to respond. In front of me, my body was strong and my skin was dark. It was completely different from my son when I left home more than a year ago. What surprised the couple the most was that my son seemed to be a bit different from before, and he seemed to have matured a lot all at once. Many times, parents are the ones who understand their children the most. Tan Jincheng can conceal himself in front of outsiders, but with his parents, there is no need to say too much, and he can feel the difference in his son just by feeling. After a moment of silence, Tan Lihua said, "All right, it's good to come back. Let's eat first, talk to me about your future plans later." Chapter 4. How to start the game. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Due to Tan Jincheng's sudden apology, all 3 people at the table appeared somewhat silent for a moment. The most attentive Zhang Suji, after suddenly feeling that her son seemed to have matured, didn't know what to do. Parents always hope their children will grow up and mature, but when they truly realize this moment, their hearts are complex. Fortunately, Tan Jincheng quickly reacted and regained his previous playful smile, and the dinner table became lively again. After a lively meal, it was less than 6 o'clock. If it weren't for the fear that their son might be hungry, the couple had just started preparing dinner. After tidying up the dishes, Tan Lihua held a teacup and glanced at Tan Jincheng. Afterwards, he walked towards the direction of the study, and Tan Jincheng followed behind honestly. Zhang Suji, on the other hand, had already sat on the sofa, turned on the TV, and locked the TV channel to Anhui Provincial TV. The weather forecast after the news was something the couple had to pay attention to every day. Afterwards, it was Zhang Suji's favorite 8 o'clock TV drama, and now Anhui TV is still dominated by Thai dramas. The dog blood plot is very popular among housewives. Starting from the beginning of the century, in the coming years, both film and television dramas and songs have been in a highly explosive state, giving birth to a series of classic works. In 2023, after changes in the economic environment, a group of people on the internet who are somewhat dissatisfied with life said the most. Only movies, TV dramas, and songs have lived up to 80 or 90. In the study, the interaction between the father and son had already begun. "What are your plans next? Do you want to continue repeating?" Tan Lihua asked first. Tan Lihua comes from a humble background and comes from a rural area in the county below Yicheng. As the first vocational school student in his family, he deeply understands that only studying can change his destiny. But in fact, in Tan Jincheng's view, the first college student, vocational school student, in a family is actually the most difficult, without any guide, stepping down one by one. My own parents, who benefited from the era, would not even consider entering a state-owned enterprise 10 years later without a family background and no business. Tan Lihua was originally very angry about his son missing out on college due to his stubbornness, but over the course of a year, his anger had dissipated. Moreover, today he even beat up this kid hard. According to Tan Lihua's thinking, he wanted Tan Jincheng to continue his studies, but just after the meal, Tan Lihua could feel his son's maturity and wanted to hear his own opinion. Although it has been almost a month since the start of the school year, I need to find some connections with the school. There should still be a chance to be a transfer student in the repeating class. I don't plan on studying anymore, I want to do my own business, Tan Jincheng said firmly, which was already planned before. Missing university is certainly regrettable, and in this era when there are not many college students, the value of being a college student is not unknown. But for Tan Jincheng, these are not important. I don't plan to become a regular in the future, and it's even more impossible to work with a diploma. Even worse, it's not difficult to get a diploma from any university after your career reaches a certain scale. In the era of recklessness, daring to fight and fight is the most important thing. Even if everything goes smoothly, it will take at least 5 years to repeat and graduate from university. Wasting this golden period of 5 years is not worth it for Tan Jincheng. Moreover, Tan Jincheng, who comes from 20 years later, would be the dumbest if he had to repeat his studies. The knowledge from high school has already been returned to his teachers. Although the timing of rebirth may not be very good, it is fortunate that it was not reborn before the college entrance examination, otherwise it would have been a blind pursuit. If you don't study, then what do you want to do? You're only 19 years old now, and you only have a high school diploma. Even if you go out to work, you can't find any good jobs, Tan Lihua pondered. Over the past year, Su Peng and I have traveled with cruise ships to many countries and witnessed a lot of scenery outside. After a pause, Tan Jincheng continued, Dad, you also know about our country's accession to the WTO. In the past 2 years, there have been significant changes both domestically and internationally, so we want to take advantage of this opportunity to do some small business. The train of the times, once you board it, you will not be thrown away. If you don't get on the car, no matter how hard you try, you won't be able to catch up. Doing business. Have you ever thought about what kind of business you want to do? Tan Lihua felt a bit disappointed in her son's unwillingness to continue his studies. However, I still want to hear about my son's future plans. After all, this is a decision he made himself. The Tan family does not have the usual long style of everyone. If there is anything in the family, it is usually discussed by the couple. Whenever there is a topic related to Tan Jincheng, they will also listen to his opinions. Both domestic and foreign demand are expanding, but currently, the industry that earns money is still related to foreign trade, so I plan to start with foreign trade as I happen to have some overseas experience. Foreign trade. It's for export, so what are you planning to sell? Yes, doing export business. If you want to sell anything, I plan to go to the coastal area for inspection in a while. Anything you want to sell is fine. Tan Jincheng did not say what to sell. In fact, there is already a target at this point, but it has not yet been specifically formed, so I don't know how to say it at the moment. In 2004, the European Union became the largest foreign trade partner in China, followed by the United States and the Little Devils. The best performing industries in the foreign trade industry are the clothing and electronics industries. Electronic products require a certain amount of technological investment, and currently, Tan Jincheng's entrepreneurial funds are not sufficient to support it. So choosing the clothing industry with lower entry barriers is naturally the best choice. As consumer goods, clothing has great market demand and low costs, with relatively high initial profits. Opening up the situation from the clothing industry, accumulating original funds, and then gradually transitioning to other industries is one of Tan Jincheng's goals. Although he did not make any money from stock trading in his past life, Tan Jincheng still knows about a company that has transitioned from the clothing industry to the new energy industry. If you're doing foreign trade, you shouldn't be able to do it at home, right? Tan Lihua looked at her son and said. Yeah, my family's foundation is still a bit weak. If you want to make money, you still have to go to the coastal areas, Tan Jincheng sighed. Tan Jincheng, a middle-aged soul, naturally knows the hardships of leaving his hometown, but he is also helpless. In his past life, he also lived in Yicheng for a long time. If possible, who would be willing to leave their hometown? When it comes to Yicheng, from ancient times to modern times, it has been famous and ranked among the 5 tigers of the Yangtze River. Anhui province named it half of the time, and its abbreviation comes from a mountain in Yicheng. However, unfortunately, Yicheng, which has a relatively prosperous ancestors, has declined even more as its strategic position has declined and the provincial capital has been moved away. Even in the rebirth of Tan Jincheng in 2023, its GDP is only the size of a third-tier city. So if you want to get rich, the only way is to go to the coastal area again, just like in my previous life, to find opportunities, and the most familiar city of Ningbo is the best landing point. When are you planning to leave? Where are you going? Chapter 5. Fa Xiao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Don't worry about this for now. Let's wait for Mom to give birth and rest at home for a while, Tan Jincheng said with a smile. To be honest, being an older brother at the age of nearly 20, even if it was his second experience, Tan Jincheng felt quite fresh, let alone being a younger sister. What man can refuse a lovely sister? Speaking of this, Tan Lihua felt a bit embarrassed again and immediately changed the topic, saying, then you should rest early tonight and go to your grandmother's house tomorrow. Mid-Autumn Festival was listed as a legal holiday in 2008, and there was no concept of Mid-Autumn Festival holiday in 2004. However, his son has returned, which is an important traditional festival that the family still values. Tan Lihua has already taken leave with her employer today. Well, okay, but we can't sleep so early. Should our family go out shopping? Tan Jincheng suggested. You go tell your mother yourself and see if she is willing or not, Tan Lihua said without hesitation. Okay. In fact, Tan Jincheng really wants to go out and take a stroll. For the memories of Yicheng, Tan Jincheng mostly stays in his childhood. In his previous life, he was busy with business, and every time he came back, he hurried and didn't stay for a few days. Tan Jincheng can narrate the history of this city in detail, however, in reality, apart from parents and loved ones, there is a blank space in life. Mom, whether we go shopping or not, let's take a walk together as a family. I won't go anymore. I'm heavy and don't want to move. If you can't stay at home, go out and play for a while. Oh, okay, then I'll go play with Pengyao. Okay, come back early and don't play too late. Got it, I have a gift for you in my box with the password 707. Dad, please take it out. It's not yet 7 o'clock, and Tan Jincheng can't sit still at home, since parents don't want to go out, then call out Zhang Xupeng and ask him what plans he has in the future. In my past life, I started doing business with Zhang Xupeng. This is a close friend of his classmates from elementary school to high school, and a member of the northern population. I used firecrackers to blow up cow dung with Tan Jincheng, skipped classes and played arcade games, and discussed which girl in the class was more beautiful. This friendship may have gone their separate ways after the college entrance examination due to their different grades and belonging to different cities. As time goes by, the two may belong to different cities, with work and small families taking up more of each other's time, and their relationship gradually fading. This is probably the ultimate destination of childhood friendships for most young people in small towns. However, due to a magical cruise experience, the friendship between the two close friends lasted for the first half of their lives until Tan Jincheng was reborn. Growing up together, studying together, and then starting a business together, it wasn't until they got married that they amicably separated. However, two people living in the same city still gather frequently. The pace of society is getting faster and faster, and it is rare for people to maintain a childhood friendship even in middle age. Zhang Xupeng's father is also a petrochemical worker, and they live in the same community. Tan Jincheng strolled down to his downstairs. Go upstairs and knock on the door. It was Zhang Xupeng who opened the door. Seeing Tan Jincheng, Zhang Xupeng's face lit up with joy as he was bored at home. Tan Jincheng walked towards the room and blinked at Zhang Xupeng. After saying hello to Zhang's parents and sitting for a while, the two of them crossed their shoulders and went out. Coming out of the family building, walking out of the community, the two walked towards the direction of the main street. Some local people in Yicheng have a saying. Yicheng's economic success is also petrified, and failure is also petrified. This statement is somewhat biased, but a large petrochemical enterprise established in the urban area seems somewhat out of place in the concept of promoting environmental protection in later generations. From a livable perspective, the environment in the urban area is much worse than that of the clear mountains and green water in the lower county. The gray sky is the norm in Yicheng. Arriving at the main street and looking around, Tan Jincheng was greatly disappointed. It was only then that he remembered that it was 2004, and the urban construction was much worse than he had imagined. "Go to the internet cafe," Tan Jincheng said to Zhang Xupeng. "Okay, let's go." "It's been a long time since I played Legend," Zhang Xupeng excitedly rubbed his hands. Luxury cruise ships are like 5-star hotels on the sea, with a variety of entertainment facilities available, but only for the wealthy. The desire for lower-level employees to sit down and play games quietly every day, aside from their endless workload, is simply wishful thinking. Since the Blue Speed incident in 2002, various regions have strengthened supervision, and there are fewer unlicensed black internet cafes operating. However, internet cafes can still be seen everywhere on the street, and a larger internet cafe has been randomly found. Tan Jincheng took a visual inspection and found that there were nearly 50 machines. Just 8 o'clock, more than half of the machines in the internet cafe were already filled with people. After paying 3 yuan per hour at the counter, Zhang Xupeng hurriedly went to find the machine. This kid can be said to be the first generation of internet-addicted teenagers. Since he started playing computer games in his sophomore year, he abandoned the game hall on the street. Tan Jincheng is not very interested in computer games, so he went to Shuyuan www.xiaoshuyuan.com. However, he has played Legend before. Like an onlooker, he followed Zhang Xupeng towards the depths of the internet cafe and caught his eye in the colorful blizzard and firewall. Although cheating in private servers have become very serious now, it does not affect the popularity of the game. After Zhang Xupeng started up, he couldn't wait to log into his game account and go to the shabak he longed for. Tan Jincheng also wanted to play for a while, but he was very helpless and couldn't remember his account. It's been over 20 years, and it's strange to still remember a game account that hasn't been logged in for a long time. "I can't play games, I can only watch the news." "Why don't you play games?" Zhang Xupeng next to him asked curiously as he opened the web page instead of logging into the game. "I don't remember my account." "You can play it yourself and I'll check the news." "I haven't played with my account for just over a year and I don't remember it." "What kind of memory are you? Can't you also forget your QQ account?" "Ha, I remember that," Tan Jincheng replied with a smile. The QQ account has been used in his past life and occasionally files are transmitted. Immediately, Tan Jincheng logged into his QQ account, which was applied for in 2002 and has 8 digits. After entering the password, what caught my eye was the QQ nickname that I couldn't bear to look directly at. Prince of the Dark Horse. Sleeping Slot. Was I also in 2nd grade like this back then? Quickly change the nickname of this spicy eye. In addition to some classmates, there are also some netizens who have been added to the QQ account before, but the number of people is not large. After not logging in for a long time, the accumulated information kept flashing. After Tan Jincheng cleared it one by one, the latest news was today. In the high school QQ group, the class monitor asked everyone about their plans for National Day and whether they wanted to gather together. "Hey, what are you doing on National Day?" Everyone in the class group is discussing the National Day gathering. Chapter 6. Night in Yicheng. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ah. We haven't come back for over a year. What's there to talk about when we go? Besides, they probably don't know we're back, do they? Seeing them chatting, I casually said, Tan Jincheng replied while refreshing the web page. Let's talk about it later. They may not even know we're back yet. That's right. At the beginning of the century, interpersonal relationships were still relatively pure compared to later generations. Tan Jincheng, these young graduates who have not graduated for long, are even more so. In his past life, Tan Jincheng also attended several classmate gatherings, and apart from some comparisons in the later stages, he overall felt quite good. Of course, Tan Jincheng now naturally has little interest in so-called student gatherings, and just now he just casually mentioned it. I had planned to talk to Zhang Xupeng about my future plans, but seeing him addicted to games, Tan Jincheng didn't speak again. For over a year on board, although not isolated from the world, my understanding of the world is limited. Tan Jincheng clicked on each web page one by one. Through these web news pages, Tan Jincheng gradually integrates into this world. On April 1, 2003, the superstar Zhang XX fell from a building and died. In February 2004, I was grateful to my roommate for not showing gratitude. The dead memory began to attack Tan Jincheng. After several web pages were opened, Tan Jincheng could not help sighing at the unrestrained internet in these years. The openness of various entries is far beyond the comparison of later generations, and most of the prohibited words in later generations can now be searched openly. Search engines are much more user-friendly than later generations. Although bidding rankings were introduced last year and advertisements have begun to appear on search pages, they are not comparable to the full-screen advertisements of later generations. Tan Jincheng, a non-professional person with memories from later generations, in such a network environment, it can really be considered like a fish in water. Unlike in later generations, who just want to watch a game and get links from various WX groups. In no time, Tan Jincheng, a young internet addict who despised Zhang Xupeng, opened the true fragrance law. However, in the eyes of outsiders, this person does not play games, chat on QQ, or watch movies, just repeatedly clicking on various news pages. The short-haired teenager seems somewhat unconventional. Unconsciously, Tan Jincheng and Zhang Xupeng have been staying in the internet cafe for several hours, but still haven't noticed. Until the phone in my pocket rings. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. My mom called. Go back quickly. Tan Jincheng pushed Zhang Xupeng. Ha! So fast. Do you want to stop playing for a while? Stop playing, let's go. I was supposed to talk to you about something, but I'll just let you know if you're too addicted to playing games. Seeing this, Zhang Xupeng also withdrew from the game and shut down, saying, alright, what do you want me to do? It can be seen that Zhang Xupeng has good self-control. If it were a year ago, he would have to procrastinate for a while. Tan Jincheng could see that over the past year, Zhang Xupeng had also undergone significant changes. After leaving the internet cafe, Zhang Xupeng still remembered what happened earlier and asked Tan Jincheng, what did you say you wanted to see me for? You probably won't continue reading, will you? What are your future plans? Ha! How do you know? Guess. Ha, you're a cow. Zhang Xupeng gave Tan Jincheng a thumbs up and then said, I'm planning to do some small business. What about you? Me, I won't read it either. Can you tell me what business you're planning to do? Tan Jincheng smiled. Why don't you stop studying? Your grades are better than mine. Your parents won't beat you up. I've already beaten you up. Don't say that. What kind of business are you planning to do? Tan Jincheng's grades are indeed quite good. Last year, he was actually admitted to university and instead of studying, he went on a cruise ship, which was also an accident. Of course, although Zhang Xupeng's grades were a bit poor, he also got into a college. If we follow the normal rhythm, the two of them should be chatting in the high school classmate group about where to gather for National Day. In short, it's just a matter of fate playing tricks on people, but it's not surprising that things like Rebirth have happened. Huh, you were actually beaten up. It seems that with a second child, your status has decreased significantly. Tell me quickly what business you're planning to do. Tan Jincheng kicked Zhang Xupeng. Let's talk about it later. Let's go have some fried noodles first. It's been a long time since we last had them, Zhang Xupeng said, touching his stomach. Tan Jincheng, who originally wanted to go home early, had no choice but to follow Zhang Xupeng to find a late-night snack stall. A portion of fried noodles, a bottle of soda, simple and straightforward. Dinner was eaten too early, and Tan Jincheng was also a bit hungry at the moment. After the fried noodles were served, the two of them started to eat with a wheezing sound and didn't even bother talking. Not to mention, Tan Jincheng has not eaten fried noodles from Yicheng for a long time. These days, the ingredients used by the vendors are much more conscientious than in later generations, at least there are not many pre-made dishes. As for the prefabricated dishes mentioned in Zhuangjiaku, they have a long history, such as steamed buns and mantou. This is just bullshit. Tan Jincheng, who has done fast food on the construction site, knows that those who sell steamed buns mantou these days, can find Shuyuan www.xiaoshuyuan.com to steam them in the early morning. Half a big kid, eat me down, in just a few minutes, their respective fried noodles were swept away. Zhang Xupeng patted his stomach with satisfaction and took a quick sip of soda, saying, "How about opening a small restaurant? It feels like we're making a lot of money." As expected, Tan Jincheng couldn't help but laugh. Still the familiar idea. What are you laughing at? Don't you think so? When we helped out with the kitchen on the ship before, we also learned some skills. It's okay to open a restaurant, isn't it? In their past lives, the two of them didn't have as much capital as they do now. They started with fast food on construction sites. Nowadays, with more capital, it is understandable for Zhang Xupeng to open a restaurant directly in order to achieve the goal. I can indeed make money, but I don't want to do this. Tan Jincheng stared at Zhang Xupeng. In this era of unlimited expansion of domestic and external demand, as a major consumer category, the catering industry can naturally make money as long as it does not aim too high. In fact, in their previous lives, due to financial constraints, the construction site fast food they initially sold was actually better than opening a restaurant directly. The construction site personnel value good quality and affordable prices, and do not have many requirements for the taste of fast food. Heavy oil and salt are sufficient. There is no need to rent any storefront for the house. The rent is cheap, with a cart and small profits but high sales. Apart from the hard work, there are no problems. In fact, small profits and high sales are only in the early stages, and the two people who hit the road can actually make decent profits in the later stages. A fast food priced at 5 yuan can completely control the cost within 2 yuan, and the gross profit is still quite considerable. Don't do this. So what do you want to do? Besides knowing a little cooking, we don't know anything else. We can't go work, can we? Selling clothes. Chapter 7. Selling clothes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Selling clothes. What kind of ghost? Zhang Xupeng looked at Tan Jincheng with a puzzled expression on his face. Is Xiaotan's brain circuit too magical? How did you think of selling clothes? Well, to be precise, it's selling clothes overseas. Tan Jincheng nodded. Except for those who are very criminal, most people who want to do business and make big money these days cannot do without foreign trade. In the foreign trade industry, clothing and electronic products are two big players. Leaving aside electronic products, the clothing industry, which has lower investment barriers and technology, is the best way to enter the foreign trade industry. Monopoly industries require a large amount of investment, which is not suitable for Tan Jincheng. Another relatively profitable financial industry is Zhonghua Pinyin, which had a cost of 85 yuan in Tan Jincheng's previous life. Does he have this ability? Zhonghua Pinyin, with a cost of 80 yuan, does it mean that he is a stock trader? Besides, it's now 2004. Apart from being able to remember Maotai liquor industry, Tan Jincheng knows nothing about the rest, and even doesn't understand the rules of stock trading these days. By the way, just went online and Tan Jincheng also checked Maotai liquor industry. It has already been listed, and yesterday's closing price was 34.93 yuan. Based on my current wealth, I can buy approximately 3,400 shares of Soha. Calculated based on the final stock price of over 2,000 yuan in Maotai's previous life, the dividends over the years are about 10 million yuan. In fact, if you listen to your father's advice, go back to school, take the college entrance exam, and then go home to take the civil service exam, lie flat, and use your funds to buy Moutai, you can also live a comfortable life in the future. But this is clearly impossible. Moreover, with my current self, there is no high school knowledge left. Since the establishment of permanent normal trade relations between the two countries in 2000 and their official accession to the World Trade Organization in 2001, the foreign trade industry has become an important pillar of China's economy. As the scope of business expands, the demand naturally increases. Even last year, due to the impact of SARS, there was no expected negative growth, and the GDP for the whole year reached a growth rate of 10%. In the first half of this year, the dumping of color televisions also had a final result. Although the four giants received considerable punishment, it did not affect the normal development of trade between the two sides. In addition, in recent years, the exchange rate between the Chinese yuan and the US dollar has remained at 8. Taking advantage of this period, doing export business can earn more US dollars to exchange for Chinese yuan. When the exchange rate reaches 6, it is a good choice to do import business or exchange for US dollars. Tan Jincheng has also done business in his previous life, and American Dow has often contacted him. I remember that since the exchange rate broke 7 in 2008, it has remained at the level of 6 for a long time, and even reached around 6.1 at the lowest time. Although the level of stock trading is not good, Tan Jincheng still knows this simple numerical comparison: $1, 1 in, 1 out, these are all ready-made profits. Given the current situation, doing import and export business is the most suitable option for Tan Jincheng. In addition, there is the sea life after rebirth, and Tan Jincheng is not just about accumulating capital. Whenever there is an opportunity, Tan Jincheng will do everything possible to meet some of the guests on the ship. Regardless of whether he is useful or not, it is always right for business people to make more friends. Tan Jincheng's words completely confused Zhang Xupeng. In his opinion, opening a restaurant was already quite bold. He didn't expect his good friend to play so much. These days, those engaged in foreign trade are still considered a relatively fashionable and high-end industry. Selling clothes abroad. Can we do it? Zhang Xupeng said with some doubts. However, it must be said that Xiao idea is indeed somewhat tempting. Even if he raises the lowest wage standard on the cruise ship, it is still a considerable amount after exchanging currency. $1 can be exchanged for over 8 yuan. As for the separation of the two, each doing their own thing, Zhang Xupeng never thought about it. Since Xiao doesn't go to school either, why should we still be together? What's wrong? We've been working for nothing this year, and you're not tired of doing odd jobs in the kitchen on the ship. That's right, why don't we open a restaurant? Good guy, there's no persistence at all. If I had known in my past life that I wouldn't listen to him, I would have worked tirelessly at the construction site to make fast food. After finishing his last sip of soda, Tan Jincheng stood up and said, "What kind of restaurant should you open? Listen to me and go to a factory in Zhejiang province. There are many girls making clothes, so you can manage the workshop when the time comes." It's still true, haha, what you're saying, but why go to Zhejiang province? When we come back, we will be docked in Yicheng. There is a port there, which will definitely be more convenient. That's right, having a port is indeed more convenient, but we'll have to wait until your younger siblings are born, right? Speaking of which, Zhang Xupeng looked at Tan Jincheng with some playfulness. A good friend hasn't come home for over a year, and as a result, they have an extra brother or sister, which is a rare occurrence for anyone. Tan Jincheng just smiled and didn't take up the topic. There was no big expression on his face, which somewhat disappointed Zhang Xupeng, who was watching the play. To open a factory in Yicheng and look for Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com is something Tan Jincheng has long thought of. There are naturally more opportunities in Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, but for himself, Yicheng is the best choice. As one of the top manufacturing cluster cities in the country, Tan Jincheng's familiarity with Yicheng is much higher than that of its hometown. Not only in the stage of primitive capital accumulation in foreign trade, but even if one wants to do something in the future, the vast industrial chain of Yicheng's manufacturing industry is also a major advantage. Furthermore, both now and in the future, the business atmosphere in Zhejiang province will be much better than that of Yicheng, the birthplace of modern industry. Even in 5 years, it will be much more difficult for two young people without a background to smoothly establish a factory in their hometown than in Yicheng. In his past life, he had a classmate who developed a children's clothing business in Huzhou. In order to repay his hometown, he happily returned home and opened a factory. When I was driving, I was very happy, but in less than 2 years, I reluctantly closed the factory and ran away. Tan Jincheng knows the current environment, although it may not necessarily be smooth in Yicheng, it will always be better in developed coastal cities. Whether now or 20 years from now, this is an undeniable fact. Before Yicheng opened the high-speed railway and the society entered the internet era, Tan Jincheng had no intention of starting a business and buying property in his hometown. Unless by then, one's own size has grown to the point where people dare not easily take action. In the darkness, Tan Jincheng and Zhang Xupeng walked side by side, chatting about their entrepreneurial plans. Streetlights, the bright moon in the sky projected their figures onto the road surface. At the roadside snack stand, crowds occasionally stop. In no time, the two of them returned to the family area and walked towards their respective gatehouses. The first day Tan Jincheng returned to Yicheng came to an end. Chapter 8. Return to Hometown. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After arriving home, Tan Jincheng realized that his parents were still awake, as if waiting for him. At present, in the eyes of my parents, I am just a 19-year-old child. I haven't returned home in the middle of the night, so I must be a bit anxious. I went to the internet cafe with Punya for a while, had a late-night snack, and then came back. Mom and Dad, you guys go sleep, I'm fine. I just got home today and ran around everywhere. Go to bed early, I have to go to your grandmother's house tomorrow, said Zhang Suji with some complaints. Remember, I also brought a gift to my grandmother, it's in the box. I see, your grandmother will definitely accuse you of spending money recklessly. It's not worth a few dollars, I'll go sleep, Tan Jincheng replied with a smile. Elderly people are like this. When you buy things for her, even if you are happy, you will complain that you spend money recklessly and don't know how to save. Seeing her parents go to bed, Tan Jincheng quickly washed up and prepared to go to bed. The next morning, after having breakfast, the family rushed to the residence of their grandparents in the countryside with their prepared gifts. The rule for people in Yicheng to visit relatives during festivals is to arrive before lunch, and they are not allowed to visit relatives in the afternoon. I took a taxi and the whole family rushed to the Huangtuking, Kong, for Sounds, passenger station, not far from the Dogguan district. In these days and years, it is relatively rare for ordinary families to own private cars. The minibus, which is unpopular in later generations, is still quite popular at present. After searching for several minibuses, Tan Jincheng finally found 2 rows of good seats and arranged for his mother to sit by the window, while guarding his seat outside. Tan Lihua guarded the gift and sat side by side with Tan Jincheng through the aisle. In no time, the minibus was fully booked, mostly consisting of migrant workers returning to their hometowns for the holiday. The train attendants began to close the doors and collect money, charging different ticket prices based on the destination. The town where Tan Jincheng and his family are going is charged 20 yuan per person. Don't be fooled by the crowds, if someone waves on the road later, the driver will still push people inside, which is why Tan Jincheng is looking for a seat. Mom is pregnant and doesn't have a good spot, so it's easy to squeeze in. As for why not take a taxi, on the one hand, they definitely don't accept taking a taxi when traveling with their parents. Taxis are charged per person to go to the countryside. And they can also be crowded. When these people get on the road, whether you rent a car or not, they will still stop to pick up customers when they encounter people waiting for the car. To go to the town in the county where my grandmother is located, the minibus takes about an hour to drive. If there are many passengers on and off the way, it takes about an hour and a half. Last night I took a taxi home, which cost around 20 yuan per 10 minutes. Today, I took a minibus to the countryside for over an hour, which also costs 20 yuan. This is the current situation of transportation in Yicheng. Tan Jincheng cannot change anything. What can be changed is to make money as soon as possible, and then buy a car, making travel much more convenient. "Mom, take a nap and I'll call you when it's time," Tan Jincheng said to his mother. The journey was bumpy, and for pregnant women, it was still quite painful. If she didn't want to take advantage of the fact that before giving birth and her son also went home to visit her mother's house, Zhang Suji really didn't want to suffer this kind of pain. Tan Lihua and Zhang Suji were born in a poverty-stricken county in Yicheng Prefecture, in the same town but different villages. They met through blind dates. I don't know if my parents have any love for Tan Jincheng, but their lives after marriage are relatively harmonious. In Tan Jincheng's impression, my parents have never argued in front of me. When I was a child, I remember my father had a hot temper outside and spoke loudly. He often argued with people, but he was very gentle when talking to his mother. But after Tan Jincheng reached his 30s, his father became a very gentle person, not only with his mother but also with outsiders, almost no longer quarreling. It is unknown why the father changed, Tan Jincheng. When Tan Jincheng was young, he worked hard outside and often called his mother, listening to her talk about family matters and chatting for over an hour. But there is little communication with my father, and the relationship between father and son is not necessarily bad, but definitely not as intimate. Looking sideways, Tan Jincheng knew that his father was sitting upright in his seat, closing his eyes tightly. With only his hands tightly gripping the gift, Tan Jincheng knew that his father must not have fallen asleep. Don't think it strange. Nowadays, if you put some high-end gifts or valuable items on the luggage rack and someone accidentally gets off the car and takes them away, you can only accept them. After daydreaming for a while, Tan Jincheng also planned to take a nap. The bus had to be bumpy for over an hour, and the road was not very good, which was really uncomfortable. In a daze, Tan Jincheng felt someone pushing him. "Here we are, get off the car." "Oh, good." Surprisingly, she fell asleep and was still awakened by her mother's push. Tan Jincheng felt a little embarrassed and had planned to take care of her on the way. "It's not my fault, this car is bumping a bit comfortably. The minibus only throws you at the intersection of the town, but no matter where your destination is, it will take at least half an hour to walk back to the village. But at this moment, my uncle is already waiting at the entrance of the small shop at the intersection, and I had already informed him about what time he will arrive before he arrived." Big brother. Mother uncle. After seeing someone, Tan Jincheng and his family quickly shouted, and upon hearing the sound, Zhang Qingfeng waved his hand and approached Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com to start an electric tricycle. Tan Jincheng has 5 uncles, the eldest uncle Zhang Qingfeng, and the second uncle Zhang Qingchao are actually cousins, not born to his grandfather. However, their own father, Grandpa Tan Jincheng's elder brother, passed away when the 2 brothers were 9 and 5 years old. It was Tan Jincheng's grandfather who raised these 2 brothers, and then they got married and had children separately. It wasn't until his cousin was in his 20s that they separated. Not only that, even the mother of both of them passed away together, which was actually very rare in that era of extreme scarcity of resources. Grandma Tan Jincheng doesn't have much impression. She passed away when Tan Jincheng was 3 or 4 years old. It's about to give birth, why come back? Just let Hua or Jincheng come back for a while. Seeing his sister having a big belly, Zhang Qingfeng couldn't help but complain. Zhang Suji smiled and agreed that it was okay. Tan Jincheng quickly took out the cigarette from his pocket and handed it to his uncle. Zhang Qingfeng looked at Tan Jincheng with some surprise and stared, "If you don't read a book, you've been out for over a year, and you've learned how to smoke. I don't smoke, I usually smoke for others, Tan Jincheng continued with a smile. That's pretty good. Take them all. Why buy such a good cigarette? Tan Jincheng could only pass the entire box of cigarettes with a bitter smile. In fact, he was a smoker, but now he dare not smoke in front of his parents. In his past life, Tan Jincheng was also considered an old smoker. This cigarette is just a welcome pine for 10 yuan, so it's not considered a good cigarette. However, for Zhang Qingfeng, it can indeed be considered a good cigarette. He has a prosperous Tang dynasty worth 3 yuan in his pocket. Sit still, we're going home. One person, one car, carrying a family of 3, heading towards their rural hometown. Chapter 9. Making up for regrets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With the development of the economy and the relaxation of the policy of going out to work, fewer and fewer young adults are staying in their rural hometowns. The same is true of Grandma's house. Several uncles younger than my mother have gone out to work as foreign workers, and they haven't come back for Mid-Autumn Festival. The reason why Uncle Zhang Qingfeng is at home is because he is already over 50 years old, and Tan Jincheng is not sure how much he is. I only remember the last time I returned home before my rebirth, my uncle had already passed his 70th birthday, so I think he should be in his 50s by now. At the age of over 50 in the city, one is already waiting to retire and enjoy happiness. However, working in rural areas under the age of 50 is very normal. Due to pregnant women, Zhang Qingfeng's electric tricycle drives very steadily and at a slow speed. Along the way, Zhang Qingfeng occasionally chatted with his sister and son.in.law, and occasionally asked Tan Jincheng some questions. However, Tan Jincheng's thoughts had already flown away at this moment. At the moment he saw his uncle, Tan Jincheng remembered his mother's second brother, the fourth uncle Zhang Qingliang. There are many children at home, and except for my younger uncle who attended high school, none of them read much. After reading a few words, they went out to work. My fourth uncle Zhang Qingliang is currently working in northeast China, engaged in decoration work. In September 2005, Zhang Qingliang was accidentally electrocuted at a construction site and died at the age of 36. His second cousin had just turned 10 at the time. Tan Jincheng can no longer remember the specific day of September, but it has been less than a year since his fourth uncle had an accident. The unexpected death of my fourth uncle dealt a significant blow to my grandmother and mother. The relationship between my mother and this younger brother was the best, and I did not fully emerge from the shadow of this incident until my rebirth in 2023. In my impression, my fourth uncle passed away, and the construction site lost 70,000 yuan or 90,000 yuan. Since then, my fourth aunt has not married anyone again, but has been supporting the family alone. Although there are many brothers who can help each other, the strong-willed fourth aunt is mostly unwilling to accept direct support from her brothers, and the mother and son live relatively difficult lives. Since then, the second cousin has also developed a quiet and reserved personality. Apart from having a good relationship with Tan Jincheng's cousin, he is unwilling to talk to anyone. Anyway, we have to stop this from happening, Tan Jincheng thought to himself. My fourth uncle is responsible for decoration, so no matter what, we must lure him to Yongqing to avoid another tragedy. Anyway, I am also planning to open a factory next year, and it will also need to be renovated. Tan Jincheng knows that even if the inertia of history cannot be stopped, he must give it a try. For the sake of my mother and family, even if accidents happen again in the future, I have no complaints about taking risks. Moreover, several uncles are really good to themselves, especially the fourth uncle who has the best relationship with his mother. Rebirth back in 2003, besides earning money, isn't it just about making up for various regrets in the previous life? During the Chinese New Year, Uncle C would go home to celebrate. He would be fooled to Yongqing first, but Tan Jincheng hadn't figured out how to fool him for a while. After all, Uncle C has developed quite well in northeast China. He is honest, hardworking, and his aunt has also saved a lot of money in recent years while working. According to my mother's previous life, if nothing unexpected happens, their family should be planning to build a new house by the end of 2005 or early 2006. How can a young boy under 20 deceive an adult with stable income into moving to another city? What are you thinking? Your uncle is asking you a question. At this moment, Tan Lihua's voice rang in Tan Jincheng's ear. Ah. What? Tan Jincheng hesitated for a moment and replied. Just now your uncle asked you a question, why are you so engrossed in your thoughts? Zhang Suji wanted to be more careful, and her son was in a daze in the car, not answering the question. I was thinking about what I talked to Punya last night. What did my uncle ask me? Tan Jincheng, who had come to his senses, covered up. Your uncle asked you what you're going to do if you're not studying anymore, said Zhang Suji. Zhang Suji only learned last night that her son didn't want to study, and she has to go back to her mother's house today, so she hasn't had time to teach him a lesson. Just in a moment, let the big brother educate this kid and go out for a year to play wild with his heart. How can we not study these days? What I just thought about was this matter. I talked to Punya last night about my future plans, Tan Jincheng said with a playful smile. Judging from my mother's expression, I know this matter is not easy to fool. In fact, the people of Yicheng attach great importance to education. In the history of Yicheng, which has been famous for many generations, the cultural style is very prosperous. Whenever there are some conditions in the family, they will work hard to provide their children with education. Tan Jincheng's grades are already good, but those who have the ability to get into university don't actually go to school, which seems somewhat unconventional to the locals. Influenced by Tan Lihua's admission to vocational school and being assigned to work in a large state-owned enterprise in the city, the reading atmosphere of the Tan and Zhang families is also relatively good. Except for his older cousin, who is slightly older than Tan Jincheng, those who are younger than Tan Jincheng are all enthusiastic about reading. In his past life, there were also many younger brothers and sisters in his family, including 985211. If it hadn't been for his good business and some money, Tan Jincheng would have no face to go back to his hometown. But these younger brothers and sisters, the oldest of whom is only 14 or 15 years old now, are all little brats. Especially on my grandfather's side, there are 5 uncles with a wide age range. The oldest uncle is over 50 years old, and the youngest uncle is only 26 years old this year. The eldest cousin is 1 year older than the younger uncle. The eldest cousin gave birth to a child at the age of 18, and his son is already 9 years old. His uncle just got engaged this year. Uncle and uncle combined, the family members are actually very large, and no one dares to bully them in the village. Entering the new century, although there have been significant differences from the 1970s, 1980s, and 1990s, the rural environment has not changed much. Having a large number of family members gives them a certain advantage in the local area, and it is common for them to rush forward when the reasoning is not clear. When I was a child, my parents had to work, and during the winter and summer vacations, I was thrown back to the countryside in Tan Jincheng. This scene is not uncommon. Even educated Tan Lihua, before being officially assigned a job at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, had to personally participate in the battle. After entering the village, the road conditions were noticeably worse than in the town, and Zhang Qingfeng's speed of driving his tricycle once again slowed down. Pedestrians occasionally pass by the roadside, most of whom are elderly. Zhang Qingfeng and Tan Lihua occasionally greet the pedestrians on the roadside. Grandma, Tan Jincheng doesn't know many people in this village, so it's wise to choose to shut up at this time to avoid shouting the wrong thing. In no time, the car stopped in the yard of Zhang Qingxian, the uncle of Tan Jincheng. The youngest son was not married, and the 2 elders are now living with him. Chinese people all have a house plot, and urban people want to buy a house. The same goes for rural people. Building a satisfactory building on their homestead is the dream of most farmers. The family conditions of several uncles are not very good, but they are also not bad. Building a small building with red bricks and prefabricated panels may incur some money, but they can also afford it. My uncle has attended high school, and after graduating from high school, he went out to work hard without the bond of his children. His conditions are the best among his brothers, and he was also the earliest to build a building. A small building with 1.5 floors, with 3 rooms above and 3 rooms below. The layout of the master bedroom, living room, and second bedroom is the same, with the top half being for storage. There is a row of 3 small bungalows next to the small building, which are the kitchen and the place where my grandparents live. The other room is designed as a pigsty and toilet. There are no pigs in the pigsty, but many chickens are raised. White walls and blue tiles are in line with the style of Huizhou architecture, except for the absence of horse head walls and stone carvings. However, these ancestral halls in the village can also be seen. Uncle, sister, the person has been brought back, and the whole family of 3 has arrived. Zhang Qingfeng, who had parked the car, shouted in the direction of the small bungalow. Chapter 10. Cruise Memory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uncle means uncle, which is the name used here. In the southern Anhui region, there are different accents within 10 miles. Each county has several accents, and the names of different villages in the same town may vary. Just like Tan Jincheng, when he calls his 2 uncles and aunts, he doesn't call them Uncle Big, but rather Second Big and Third Big. Nyang, San Nyang will be called. As for why Zhang Qingfeng called his aunt his sister, this is a historical legacy issue. Grandpa Tan Jincheng passed away early that year, and his family was extremely poor. Before getting married, he had to support his 2 nephews. In such a situation, no woman is willing to marry him. My grandfather is 13 years older than my grandmother. My grandmother's family is a singer, and during that special era, there were unexpected events. I am willing to betroth my grandmother to my grandfather. But the premise must be that the food is provided by the grandfather. So, my grandmother, who was not very old at the time, often played and did farm work with her big nephew, who was not much younger than me. Over time, the 2 nephews have been referred to as older sisters. However, the 2 brothers have great respect for the 2 elders. Uncle Zhang Qingfeng has been living on a few acres of land in his family for over 50 years, except for a few times when he has built riverbanks and left the county town. During leisure time, I go to nearby construction sites, prefabrication factories, and other places to do odd jobs and earn some money to support my family. When I was a child and even when I was young, I had a very difficult time, but fortunately, all of this has passed and the conditions of each family are gradually improving. My grandparents are at home, and the 2 little cousins who live with them don't know where to play. As for the eldest aunt and the son of the eldest cousin, they live at the end of the village, which is the head of the village. I'll probably come over for dinner later. Tan Jincheng greeted his grandparents with another round of small talk, and words like strong and black occasionally popped up in her grandmother's mouth. Tan Jincheng has a good relationship with his grandmother and actually admires this little old lady very much. After his brother passed away, my grandfather was responsible for raising his nephew. Although it was great in that era, it was basically in line with the mainstream values at that time. But my grandmother was different. At that time, many people were unwilling to marry my grandfather because they were more afraid of having to raise 2 nephews as soon as they entered the door, which was too heavy a burden. Although my grandmother was forced to accept this decision due to family reasons, she had no complaints or regrets after marriage, and neither her 2 nephews nor their daughter-in-law had a red face. A little old lady who has never read a book, has been taking on responsibilities that she should not have taken on for decades, and has maintained an optimistic attitude towards life until old age. Such quality is very rare. At noon, the eldest aunt came over, and the younger brothers and sisters who were playing outside also came back. Seeing the eldest cousin come back, everyone was quite happy. I haven't seen my big cousin for over a year. I heard he went to work on a boat and even went abroad, which is a new thing. On the dining table, Tan Jincheng was surrounded one by one, and he asked with a chatterbox, "Cousin, is it fun abroad? What does it look like on a ship?" "Yes, cousin, tell us about it." "Uncle, how much money did you earn working on the ship?" One curious little face after another, making Tan Jincheng feel like he has passed away. The son of his cousin, who asked himself how much money he had earned, married a college classmate in 2022. My uncle's child hasn't been born yet, and whenever he thought about this kid calling a child over 10 years younger than him an aunt in the future, Tan Jincheng wanted to laugh. Not only these younger brothers and sisters, including Tan Jincheng's parents, but also his uncles and aunts, all looked at Tan Jincheng with some curiosity. "That's right, until now, I haven't told my parents about my experiences of working overseas for a year. Since that's the case, then nag, abroad, what do you want to hear about fun? Cousin, have you seen sharks at sea?" "Of course I have seen sharks before. I also saw someone catch a shark. Isn't it said in the textbook that you can't catch sharks?" "Cousin, you're lying, right? But do some countries secretly arrest them? We happen to see them. When you grow up, don't follow the people of these countries and don't do anything illegal." "Cousin, how many countries have you been to and what kind of people have you seen?" "Hee, when it comes to this, your cousin and I are really impressive. I have been to over 10 countries, and I have seen people with white and black skin. Are you busy with work on the ship? How are you eating? Do you often have to work in the sun when it's so dark?" The person who asked this was Zhang Suji. These little brats were asking some strange questions, not what she wanted to know, so she couldn't help but ask. Suntanning is because the purple line at sea is strong, and sometimes it's inevitable to move goods. If you're busy, it's okay. There's no job that's not busy, isn't there? Dad's work can also be very busy at times. As for the food, Mom doesn't have to worry about it. We're not the kind of cargo ship, we're a sea cruise ship, which is equivalent to a 5-star hotel on the sea. As for the hotel, there are guests and they will definitely eat very well. Look at me, I have grown strong. After speaking, Tan Jincheng also brightened his biceps, and this childish move amused Zhang Suji. "What is a 5-star hotel, uncle?" "A 5-star hotel, you can consider it the best hotel. It's a particularly beautiful house with both delicious and fun options. Wait for my uncle to show you around in the future. Isn't it a ship? Why did it turn into a house again? A house on the sea. Oh, cousin, you're not lying to us, are you? Huh, you guess." Among these topics, there are certainly true and false, but Tan Jincheng will not explain either. If it weren't for the soul of a middle-aged person, Tan Jincheng wouldn't have been able to answer his cousins so easily at Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. In fact, some of his cousins who are currently at home, Tan Jincheng, are not older than most of them. The oldest cousin is only 6 years younger than Tan Jincheng, and the nephew of the eldest cousin's family is only 10 years younger than Tan Jincheng. The younger uncle's child has not yet been born. However, due to living in rural areas for a long time and most of his parents going out to work, the child had little knowledge and was fooled by Tan Jincheng, who had seen the world before. Eating a meal for a long time, adults, children are all listening to Tan Jincheng talking about his observations at sea, such as what kind of wonders he saw at sea. When docking in other countries, what kind of people do you see and what kind of guests are on board? After lunch, the adults were busy tidying up the dishes, while Tan Jincheng, like a child king, greeted them inside and began distributing gifts. This is their favorite part. This time when he returned home, Tan Jincheng brought many small and large gifts, all of which were worthless items, but they were still quite rare in rural areas. Tan Jincheng, who was young and fond of playing in his previous life and was doing business outside, always likes to buy some gifts that his younger brothers and sisters haven't seen before when he comes back to his hometown. This is a reserved program every year. Looking at the younger brothers and sisters grabbing gifts, Tan Jincheng smiled, returning to the feeling of a past life. The feeling of being the boss is quite satisfying, no. In the afternoon, Tan Lihua helped his old father-in-law with some farm work to the best of his ability, while Zhang Suji, who had not returned for a long time, accompanied the old lady to chat. Tan Jincheng, who couldn't sit still, continued to go out and play wildly with his younger siblings. After finally coming back, he had to let himself go and reminisce about his childhood.